Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service. This talk was given by Lama Matthew Palden Gocha.
First, I want to share a poem with you and explore a theme that is both very simple and profound. How we perceive the world around us. So the poem is called Unfolding Gaze. The first eye sees a world of form and name, a steadfast fortress for the fragile soul. It takes what's given, plays the common game, and trusts the tale that makes the fragments whole. The second eye sees change beyond control. The self, a stream, flows to the waiting sea. All forms release to what they're meant to be. When this is known, the heart escapes its thrall into the third where knower, known are all, and all is light abiding radiantly. So the Buddhist path is often described as a path of understanding, a path of wisdom. But wisdom doesn't begin with ideas, it begins with seeing. Not just seeing with the eyes on our face, but with the eyes of our heart, the eyes of understanding and the eyes of awareness. In Buddhism, we often speak of three complementary modes of seeing. The ordinary eye sees the solid story, the world around us. The insight eye sees the changing flow, how things come and go. And the wisdom eye sees the luminous whole. Each of these perspectives is necessary, and each has its place, and each reveals a part of reality. The journey of awakening is not about throwing away the first two so that we can live in the third. It's about learning to move gracefully among them, knowing which eye to use in which situation. So let's open these one at a time. The ordinary eye is the way we normally perceive the world. It is fast, efficient, and highly conditioned. You hear a sound and immediately car, phone, interruption comes to mind. Someone makes a face and the mind says they're upset or they're happy. A sensation arises and the mind leaps to something's wrong with me. The Buddha explained this beautifully in the Mahapandika Sutta, where he says, what one perceives, one thinks about. What one thinks about, one mentally proliferates. This is an incredibly deep insight. He's saying the moment we perceive something, the mind starts building stories around it. These stories become our thoughts. These thoughts multiply and become the whole of our world. And this is the ordinary eye, quick, reactive, full of projections. And then the Buddha says the world is led by perceptions. Perception, not truth, often determines how we behave. We don't react to reality. We react to the stories we've built around reality, often without knowing it. So we shouldn't think of the ordinary eye as wrong. It's simply incomplete. It gives us enough information to move through the day, but it also limits us. It frames us. It creates identities and reactivity. This is why the Buddhist practice begins not by rejecting ordinary perception, but seeing through it, understanding its limits. The insight eye opens when we begin to look more closely at our actual experience rather than our stories and our experiences. This is a complete eye that observes the arising and passing of sensations, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. The Buddha expressed this in the line repeated through the Pali Canon, whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation. This is not meant as a dark statement, it's liberating. Insight practice reveals that every sensation, every feeling, every thought arises due to causes and conditions, changes in every moment, and dissolves without us having to force anything. When we see this clearly, we stop clinging. We stop talking, or we stop taking thoughts so personally. We stop believing emotions will last forever. And we stop assuming that today's sense of self is who we truly are. This liberating truth that all things flow and cease is echoed by the Mahamudra master Tilopa. He says, the mind is like a river, always flowing. Do not cling to anything. With the insight eye, we begin to see the river. We see the flow. We see the movement that has always been happening. As the great meditation master Dakpo Tashi Namgyal reminds us, look at the arising of thoughts. Look at their abiding. Look at their dissolving. In this clear seeing, their nature becomes known. This is a perfect description for the insight eye. Thoughts are not enemies. They are simply events. Emotions are not failures. They are weather patterns. Self-concepts are not truths. They're habits. With the insight eye, we begin to watch our experience with curiosity. What is this? How does it move? Insight softens us. It frees us from reactivity, and it can even dissolve lifelong habit patterns. But insight without warm-heartedness can become dry or detached. So insight must be grounded in compassion. The wisdom eye is the most encompassing mode of seeing. It includes the insight eye's understanding of impermanence, but sees it not just as a linear process, but as a dance within a vast open space. The non-dual, empty, and luminous nature of that impermanence, it sees inseparability. Everything arises together in a web of interdependence. Here we do not just see the river, we see the ocean, the openness in which the river flows. The Buddha offered a striking series of images for this level of understanding. Form is like a bubble. Feeling is like a water drop. Perception is like a mirage. Formations are like a plantain tree. Consciousness is like a magic trick. These metaphors point to the emptiness of the five aggregates. Not that they don't exist, but they don't exist in the way we assume they do. Forms appear solid, but burst like bubbles. Perceptions seem reliable, but shimmer like illusions. And thoughts feel substantial, but vanish like magic. Longchen Rabjam, one of the great Dzogchen masters, described this with luminous simplicity. In the vast expanse of awareness, everything is already resolved. Let everything be as it is and rest in the natural state. This is the wisdom eye. Resting as awareness in which all forms arise and dissolve, knowing that nothing stands alone, knowing that self and other are impenetrable. As Rangdung Dorje, the third Karmapa, wrote in his Aspiration Prayer of Mahamudra, when the nature of mind is seen, appearances and emptiness are recognized as inseparable. When this eye opens, even for a moment, you see that thoughts are the radiance of awareness. Emotions are waves on the ocean. Other people are not outside of your heart, and the world and the mind are reflections of one another. It's not mystical, it's deeply intimate. The wisdom eye doesn't replace the earlier two, it illuminates them. To understand how these three eyes work together, let's begin with a simple analogy, a painter at work. The ordinary eye sees shapes, colors, and lines. Without it, the painter cannot place a brush on the canvas accurately. The insight eye sees the movement, the flow, and impermanence. The painter notices how lights shift, how pigments mix. In life, it helps us to see how emotions, thoughts, and situations arise and fade. And then the wisdom eye feels the unity of the entire scene. The painter senses the harmony. In life, it nurtures compassion, presence, and spaciousness. When the three eyes are working together, life unfolds differently. Take a difficult interaction, maybe with a coworker, a family member, or a stranger. These become workable instead of overwhelming. The ordinary eye sees the facts, what was said, what was done. The insight eye notices the emotions arising in both parties and their transient nature. And the wisdom eye senses the connection beneath the surface. Everyone is acting from conditions and causes, not as isolated antagonists. Maybe we could look at like a strong emotion. Anger, fear, anxiety. These become waves rather than an identity. For our ordinary eye, it notices the feeling in the body. The insight eye watches how it rises and falls. And the wisdom eye rests in the awareness in which the wave occurs, realizing it is not who we ultimately are. Again, a stranger or a challenging situation becomes a fellow traveler rather than an obstacle. With our ordinary eye, it observes the external facts. The insight eye recognizes the cause and conditions at play, and the wisdom eye sees the interconnectedness and responds with empathy. Like any skill, though, these three eyes can be out of balance. The ordinary eye alone, it could feel claustrophobic, like being trapped in a small room with loud, repetitive thoughts. We see the world as solid, fixed, threatening. We cling, we judge, and react habitually. An example, maybe snapping at a colleague for a minor mistake. The feeling it defines them and carrying that judgment throughout the day. Can you all recall a time, maybe this week, when you felt trapped in this solid, reactive view? If we look at the insight eye alone, it can become a spiritual loneliness where you see everything passing but feel disconnected from the heart of it. We can see the impermanence of things but fail to connect with them. Compassion is absent. Again, another example is using the knowledge of impermanence to dismiss a friend's grief, saying, this too shall pass, without actually offering comforting presence. Again, do you ever feel like you've used spiritual understanding to create distance instead of connection, maybe spiritual bypassing instead of addressing the issue that needs to be addressed? And then the wisdom eye alone is kind of impractical spirituality, the bypassing. It can make us gentle but passive, loving in theory but absent in action. We can recognize the unity of all phenomena but neglect the concrete needs of life. Again, another example of this is contemplating interdependence while ignoring a friend's call for help, thinking everything is interconnected, so it doesn't matter. Again, have you ever been so focused on a big picture that you neglected a small, kind action? I don't know. Awakening is not about abandoning the world, escaping daily life, or floating in an abstract awareness. It's about seeing the world clearly, compassionately, and spaciously, with all three eyes opening in harmony. When these three eyes are integrated, the ordinary eye grounds us in reality. The insight eye keeps us awake to the flow of experience, and the wisdom eye opens the heart to others and to life itself. The painter analogy reminds us the brush, the paint, the light, and the canvas must all work together. Similarly, the ordinary, insight, and wisdom eyes must work together to create a life of clarity, presence, and compassionate action. So these teachings aren't meant to stay on the cushion or in our shrine room. They are invitations, way of seeing that you can weave directly into the fabric of your daily life. So take a moment this week to explore how each of these eyes might come alive for you. And in the rush of daily life, perception happens fast. Sometimes someone may cut you off in traffic. Your partner may say something sharp. You see an unexpected bill. A coworker sends a terse message. The ordinary eye leaps forward with stories. How dare they? They don't respect me. This always happens to me. But what if, just once today or this week, you pause? Even a half second of stillness is enough. And that pause interrupts that mental proliferation. It softens the automatic reaction long enough for clarity to arise. In that pause, you might notice the tightness in your chest, the heat of irritation, the impulse to lash out, the habit of making everything a catastrophe. That's the insight eye gently opening. A single breath can transform an entire situation. It gives you the freedom to choose how to respond rather than being swept away. So this week, before responding to anything emotionally charged, just silently say, pause. Just like that. Let it slow the momentum. Let it create the space. Observe how emotions arise and dissolve, strengthening the insight and this early aspect of our wisdom. Because emotions often feel solid, like discrete things that we have. But when we look closely, we see that they are just waves of sensations moving through the body. And so this week, maybe when an emotion arises, notice where it appears in the body. Notice how it builds, how it changes, and how it dissolves. You don't have to like it. You don't even have to fix it. Just observe it. This transforms I am angry into anger is arising. It shifts I am anxious into anxiety is present. The first is identity. The second is observation. And this gentle shift opens the door to freedom. And when you begin to see what the Buddha meant when he said, whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation, there is an enormous liberation in recognizing the temporary nature of our inner weather. It allows us to act from wisdom rather from habit. And you don't have to be on a mountain retreat or to touch the wisdom eye. You don't need to perfect stillness or some special state. You just simply need moments of letting things be as they are. And try this during some ordinary activities, while washing your hands, while waiting in line, while sitting at a red light, even listening to someone speak a very long Dharma talk, or while you're drinking some of that great coffee that's in the other room. Just relax your shoulders, soften the jaw, let the mind settle naturally. Sense the simple presence that is always here beneath the noise. Not a trance, not an altered state, just a quiet knowing of awareness itself. And this is the wisdom eye coming into view, seeing without grasping, knowing without adding commentary, resting without withdrawing from life. As Longchenpa said, in the vast expanse of awareness, everything is already resolved. Even a few seconds of this kind of presence can change the texture of your whole day. But ultimately, these three modes of seeing are not just about private insight. They're about preparing the ground for how we live. Compassion is where the three eyes become one. The ordinary eye lets us see the person in front of us. The insight eye lets us understand their suffering as conditioned, not personal. And the wisdom eye lets us recognize that their suffering and ours are intertwined. When we see with all three, we speak more gently, we listen more deeply, we forgive more easily, and we respond more skillfully. Compassion becomes the natural expression of wisdom, and wisdom becomes the natural expression of compassion. This is how the Dharma flows through us and into the world. So you don't need to remember everything I just said. You don't need to practice perfectly. You don't even need to get all three eyes open every day. If you remember even one eye, even one pause, one moment of awareness, one act of compassion, the whole path is available. Because every moment of genuine seeing conditions all the others. And seeing with the three eyes is not an esoteric practice. It's a practical way to meet your own life with clarity and compassion. Again, the ordinary eye tells us what is happening. The insight eye tells us how it moves. And the wisdom eye tells us what it truly is. So may we learn to see with all three. May we meet our days with clarity, with kindness, and with a spacious heart. And may this vision benefit all beings. And may your week be filled with passion, wisdom, gratefulness, and joy. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.